By the way, don't bring both your spouse and your girlfriend, boyfriend. That gets awkward. So without further ado, Marty, our program this week.
Thank you, Bill, President Bill.
Can we get a microphone here, please?
I'm probably loud enough to...
This didn't go to school.
Thank you. It gives me a great deal of pleasure here. About a year ago in end of October, 1st of November, I was on an interview committee to hire a Scout executive, which is the Chief Administrative Officer for the Boy Scout Council in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. And we interviewed 4 candidates sent by the National Council of the Boy Scouts, and we selected the Scout executive of Alameda Council in the Bay Area to be our Scout executive here, and that's Charles Howard Gibbon, and longtime Scouter and Eagle Scout, and has worked in many, many councils in various positions, including Scout executive. We're very lucky to have him. He's going to be our program. February is also Scout Month. February was founded in February. Scouting was founded in February, and therefore it's called Scout Month, and there's Scout Sunday. There's a lot of activities that go on for the Boy Scouts of America. So with that, I'll turn it over to our speaker, Charles Howard Gibbon.
So let's all welcome him with our song. How do you do, honored speaker, how do you do? Is there anything that we can do for you? Thanks for coming here today. We are with you all the way. How do you do, honored speaker, how do you do? So that's the forward and that's the back.
All right. That's fine. Thank you. Well, what I'd like to do before I do the slideshow is do a little audience participation. So first of all, we haven't stood up for at least 20 to 25 minutes, most of us, so I'd like to have everybody stand up, stretch your legs, and we'll do a little bit of an up and down thing, okay? So now you've been able to stretch your legs, and now I'll have you sit down again. Very good. Now I'm going to have some of you stand up again. If you're someone who's ever been the parent of a Girl Scout, a Campfire Girl, a Boy Scout, or a Cub Scout, or an Explorer, I want you to stand up again. If you ever were a Cub Scout, a Boy Scout, a Campfire Girl, an Explorer, or a Girl Scout, I want you to stand up again. And if you're ever a volunteer helping kids with merit badges, or helping out as a Scout leader, or actually ever helped out at a Scout function, I want you to stand up again. And now I've got almost all of you standing up. I've got to find a reason for the gentleman in the hat to stand up, and then we'll have all of you standing. And I'm surprised after all these years we haven't found a Scout job for you yet, so we're going to have to work on this guy in the back here. So thank you. Thank you very much. You've made an example of what I want to share with you today, which is Scouting touches our lives. It's been touching the lives of Scouts in this world since 1907. In this country since 1908, and officially in this country starting on February 8, 1910. And Marty alluded to it. Tomorrow is the 108th birthday of the Boy Scouts of America, as far as a charter goes. So I do have a few slides to share with you about local scouting, and then I want to share with you a few of the recent things that you've heard about in the news, because I think that's kind of interesting. So the first slide I have shows Scout activities that I took with my camera since I was up at Camp Noyo last July. How many of you have ever heard of Camp Noyo? Just raise your hand if you know where Camp Noyo is. It's a cute little camp that we have with the help of the Hemphill family over on the Skunk Train line. It's actually downriver from the bigger camp that's run by the San Francisco Boys and Girls Club. But it's a beautiful camp that we've been using since the early 1930s. And you'll see that that's a snapshot of 2 Scout activities. Enjoying the waterfront, where they get to dam up the river and have a nice little lake to swim in for the summer. And then you'll actually see the kids and their Weevil Scout parents enjoying a nice little barbecue that we had going on there. It was called Weebelow's Weekend, where we had over 100 people in camp to enjoy the outings, and that was Weebelow's parents, as well as teenagers and adults that were serving on a volunteer staff. And I probably turned it off instead of turning it the right way. Huh? So I'll let you know. So now I get fined, right?
$5.
We get an honor, we call it the Ken Branch honor.
There you go.
Well
So
done,
which
Joe.
button do we use to switch it?
That's what the Super Bowl looked like.
There it is. Let's see if I can hit the right arrow this time. Here, whoa, too far.
There's a
Okay.
slight delay.
Got it.
Just be patient. There we go. So one of the things that most of you know is just that Scouting is known for community service. And this has always been true. Scouting has pretty much been doing the community service thing pretty much from the beginning. Conservation service, helping out with people that need help in terms of local community activities. We were really kind of called to action, especially though because of the recent fires that we had here in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. And it wasn't just one fire, it was about 5 different fires going on all over the place. And in both Sonoma County and Mendocino County, one of the first things that we did once the fires had gone by after a few days was we decided to recall on a service project we did for Lake County a couple years ago where we made sifter boxes to help some of the people that had lost everything be able to go back to their properties and look for the things that were buried in the rubble. And so what you see in a picture that's coming up is that we actually made over 3,600 of these sifter boxes using materials that were donated by scouters and local businesses to actually construct these sifter boxes and get them out to the families that wanted to basically get back and see what they could find. On the previous slide, though, it's not just about what we did during the fires, it's also about what we do all the time. You'll see the gentleman on the right, he's helping kids learn all about nature and ecology and conservation. His name's Bill Ney, and he's just one of our 900 volunteers that helps us and helps all of our scouts learn basically how to treasure the earth and how to treat it right and basically how to work with it and understand it. And then on the left, you see a picture of younger Cub Scouts coming to a Boy Scout camporee, which is for older boys. And again, it's not about just what the older kids are doing, it's also about what we want to do, which is bring younger people along and include them in the program. So those are some fun slides that I brought along. After we finished making the sifter boxes, then we proceeded to some other service projects, including doing a trunk or treat program for kids that had nowhere else to go for a Halloween party. And we also did a big pancake breakfast to honor our first responders, and also had the people who paid for the breakfast then turn around and give that money to the North Bay Fire Relief Fund. So we did some neat things last year, and it's a treasure to be involved with this Scout Council, just as it has been with all the ones I've served before. This group behind me is a cross-section of adult volunteers that went through the Wood Badge training. And the Wood Badge is the advanced volunteer training. And they were up in the mountains for 2 weeks, well not 2 weeks, but 2 weekends. And this is typical of the commitment of scouting volunteers. It's kind of like the commitment of Rotarians. We go through a lot of training as volunteers so we can better serve our communities. And that's just one example. But this is just a cross-section, 900 people that serve our 2,000 kids in the program. And then we turn around and we want to outreach. We were at the North Bay Science Day, Discovery Day, where there's about 15,000 people that show up at the fairgrounds. And we're there basically trying to reach out to more families and say, hey, scouting's a lot of fun, why don't you be part of it? And you can see that we constructed a monkey bridge, and we even let the little girls cross over the monkey bridge with a little bit of a help. So this is kind of a typical of what scouting's like. It's a lot of outdoor activity, but it's also a lot of hands-on learning. Kids learn from about 139 different merit badges where they learn about careers and hobbies and sports. It's really a cross-section of things. It's not just camping. It really is a lot of different things that Scouts get to do. And it's a year-round program. It's not something that starts and stops after a 2-month period. It's something that goes on all year round. Troops and Cub Scout packs, they meet all year. Most of them meet every week. Even our Explorer posts, which don't meet every week, usually meet 2 or 3 times a month. And then those teenagers that help out with the law enforcement and the fire service are out there doing community service as part of their scout thing. So really, there's a lot of scouting going on all the time, all year round. But there are a couple things that are not on the slideshow I wanted to call your attention to, and they're on your table. So I'm going to set this down for just a second and call your attention to the handouts. If you're interested in knowing a little bit about our geography or a little bit about the way scouting actually affects and improves upon the lives of kids and families, there's some nice information in this brochure. And the reason why I bring it to your attention is, in this brochure, it talks about the impact of scouting on those inside pages, where it talks about how many kids earn merit badges and how many kids actually went on outings and how many young people and families got to experience these kinds of things, in addition to the 40,000 hours of community service. And the other two things I put on your table are new things. One is we've changed the way we recognize our donors. It used to be we'd come up with a wooden plaque and you'd hang it on the wall and you weren't sure why you had it. And now we came up with a new way of recognizing and appreciating the businesses and the individuals that support us. We allow them to identify with a merit badge. And we give them recognition on our website and on these big vinyl banners so that we can actually let the public know which businesses and individuals support us. And then I want to call your attention to the thing that just happened a few months ago. We've been having a long conversation with families over the years about how we serve more youth. And one of the things that was kind of brought to our attention over and over again for the entire 30 years I've been serving as a professional scouter was that why was it that we wouldn't make a place for families to bring their whole family to be part of scouting instead of trying to send them off to other organizations on different nights and different locations. And so we created an option for some of our chartered organizations, some of our partners, to include girls in Cub Scouting by having separate dens of girls, alongside of dens of boys. And we decided to call that family scouting because that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make it possible for a single mom or for a husband and wife that might be stretched to their limits on time to be able to bring both their son and their daughter to a program where they're both in the same location on the same evening. They would be in separate dens, but they would have an opportunity to be in the scouting program and not have to work with 2 or 3 different organizations on 2 or 3 nights and 2 or 3 locations, which is something that the younger generation just doesn't make sense to them. So we are now offering that on an optional basis. We found out that the PAC in Windsor is probably going to be the very first one to do this. And we have a pretty strong feeling our Sebastopol PAC 128 is probably going to be doing this in June too. So you might see some little girls running around in blue shirts in a couple of months. And that's a new thing for us, but it is sweeping across the country. And if you look at that handout I gave you, you can see that most people want it. Our surveys of non-scouting parents said that 90% of families wanted us to be doing this. So we have a pretty strong, compelling market that says that we should be giving the opportunity for girls to be in Cub Scouting. We don't know what we're going to do quite yet with the girls next year that are older girls that are middle school age, but one thing we know for sure is the survey said if we were going to do something for older girls, like we were doing in Cub Scouting and like we were doing in venturing and exploring, that it should be, in terms of badges, the same as what the boys are doing. So whatever we're doing for older girls next year, it will give them the opportunity to work on the same merit badges and the same ranks of tenderfoot to eagle that the boys have been doing for 108 years. Those are the things I wanted to share with you. They're just tidbits of what's going on in scouting. But I can tell you that I've enjoyed it tremendously from the time I joined. Marty and his group last week surprised me. They gave me a little lapel pin for the time that I joined scouting 50 years ago and was very honored by that. If you add 8 but 50, and you can figure out how old I am then, see? And I've had a chance to know Marty as well as Terry for over 30 of those 50 years. And it's been a pleasure to be involved in scouting as a volunteer as well as a professional. I had a chance to be sustained in the scouting program through a service organization we have called the Order of the Arrow, which in some ways is a lot like Rotary. And so it's kind of why I became a Rotarian, is because when I became a professional scouter and found out what Rotary was doing, I wanted to kind of repeat the community service that you're all doing as adults that I got to do as a teenager in the Ordero. And so the Daly City Rotary brought me in 1984, and they haven't chased me out since then. So it's been a pleasure to be a Rotarian as well as a Scout professional, as a Scouting volunteer. But what I would like to say to all of you is that what you're doing as Rotarians and what we're doing as Scout volunteers and Scout leaders is making a difference. And you don't probably hear that enough. I know that you enjoy coming to breakfast and I know you enjoy your service, but then sometimes you wonder if it is meaningful. And I've been engaged in community service now in my profession as well as in my volunteerism my whole entire life. And I can tell you that I get appreciation a lot in terms of hearing about what we're doing, both in scouting and in all the other things we do. And I would tell you this, that we're extremely grateful to the Rotarians especially, because way back when we were getting scouting started, Rotary was just a few years ahead of us. They started in 1905. And so when we needed scout camps and funding to get our council started, the Rotarians were the ones that were there to help us get our scout camps started and to get our council started. So we're very grateful to Rotary, and we do appreciate you guys. And we know that you not just do it for scouting, but you do it for so many other organizations. And so I do want to salute you as a fellow Rotarian as well as a Scout professional and say that what Rotary does and has been doing is very meaningful, and we do know about it as Scouters, and we do appreciate what you guys contribute as Rotarians here in Sebastopol and in the district and in the rest of the United States of America. And with that, I'll entertain a few questions because I'm sure you have some. And I'll let your president go first, and then I'll call on this gentleman second.
Actually, I got two questions, so I'll just ask
That
one,
fair?
and then I'll let him go. When girls start, excuse me, coming in and working towards Eagle Badges, traditional Girl Scouts had some types of merit badges that were a little different from the ones in Boy Scouts. Will some of those be added? Because a lot of those life skills are really things that boys and men should know as well. You know, sewing and that kind of stuff. They may not have seen traditional, but number one, they're more likely to appeal to more of the young women, but they're skills that men ought to know as well.
You know, it's funny you mention that. I don't know that we're going to make a lot of badge changes. I can tell you that I had to learn to sew my merit badges on my sash because my mom didn't have time to do it, so I learned how to do it. They'll be doing the same badges, but I imagine as time goes along and we have more young people involved, there might be some surveys that tell us there's a few things we're missing in our badge program and might be making some changes. But for right now, what we found is my daughters, who were in the older programs of venturing in the Boy Scouts of America, were telling us, and this is the survey, saying that they wanted to do what the boys were doing. So part of this is a response to the fact that there are girls that want to do the things the boys were doing that the Girl Scouts in the campfire typically don't. That being said, we don't want to disavow or not appreciate the fact that the campfire and the Girl Scouts are doing some amazing things with their kids. And the only thing that's a struggle is that 9 out of 10 girls are not in any program. And unfortunately, 9 out of 10 boys are not in any program. So our goal is to reach more boys and girls by making it easier on the family by having what you would call one-stop shopping. That's really what it's about. It's trying to create an opportunity for more people to be present at one time when time is precious. And we're asking people to be volunteers. The question is, how can we make it possible for a family that just came from another country where they're used to having the girls and the boys in the same program, they want that. Or when you have a single parent who's got 2 or 3 children and they want to be able to bring their children to the same Scout program. The question is, how do we make it easier for them? But there probably will be some badge changes. I would imagine as time goes along, there'll be some boys and girls that will say, hey, what about, let's get one more of these badges. But to say in advance of that, we do have some badges that you probably don't remember as a Boy Scout, like digital technology, or chess, or game design. I mean, there are some badges that we're doing that we didn't have when I was younger, when Marty was younger, when Terry was younger, when you guys were younger. That, you know, some of those badges didn't exist then, and they do exist now. So there are lots of modern badges available to young people. Go ahead.
Maybe you said something about this and I missed it, but what is the relationship at the top of the organization, Boy Scouts of America, with Girl Scouts of America? Is there any sort of official link? Is there a plan to merge them in some way, or how will you go forward with this mixing between boys and girls?
They're not gonna mix.
Yeah, there isn't a plan for the two organizations to get together because the Girl Scouts has, in a very nice way, kind of pleasantly said that they want to be a girls-only organization. And before we made this decision, as well as the time in 1991 when we started our Learning for Life division, and in 1971 when we started bringing girls into exploring, we've had three different, what we call behind-the-scenes conversations with the Girl Scouts, and the three different times the Girl Scouts have said, we're a girls-only organization. We think we can be effective doing what we're doing. So they respectfully declined the opportunity to consolidate their efforts with us. That being said, one of the things we're trying to remind people about what we're doing is we're not planning to do the European style of completely blending the genders, because it's not something American society is yet ready for. When we do Cub Scouting and Boy Scouting, there'll be separate ends and separate patrols with separate leadership, because until the girls and the boys get to be about age 13 or 14, they don't blend as well in American society as we all might think they would like to. And so, for now, when we have packs, if you look at the diagram on the handout, you'll see that if a pack takes in boys and girls, they'll have boy dens and girl dens. Okay? And it's even possible for a pack to be all girls, with just all girls. And there'll still be a lot of packs that will still be all boy packs, because we let each local community decide what they want to do. And each local civic organization that charters the unit gets to decide if they want to have girl dens, have boy dens, or have some of both. And so that we're being very flexible about that. So the answer is we will be serving girls like we have for 45 years. We'll have them in the younger programs like we've had in the older programs. Go ahead.
On this same theme, given the current Me Too issues that have just come up from under the covers, is Scouts doing anything to address boys' relationships with girls and how they treat the opposite sex?
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because we have youth protection concerns. We've been doing a lot of what we call youth protection training for both adults and teenagers for quite a long time. I remember in the mid-1980s when we first started talking about youth protection training, is one of the time where talking about that subject was still somewhat uncomfortable for a lot of people. But we now have a lot of educational tools that we use with the teenagers as well as with the adults about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. So the answer is we're kind of way ahead of a lot of people on that score. I imagine it's going to get even better as time goes along. But I would say that it's interesting. My daughters were on camp staff at Wente Scout Reservation, which is the Boy Scout camp near Willits. And they actually had quite a few teenage girls on the camp staff teaching the boys the merit badges. It's close to about 30% of all of our camp staff members are female. And the boys and the girls up there know that they have a code of conduct to live up to, and they know that there's expectations that they're going to be pretty well behaved and treat each other well. So I don't think, I'm not going to say we don't have a concern, we do have a concern, but I would say we're probably doing better than the average bear on that subject. Go ahead, PJ.
Morning, thank you. I grew up in San Francisco as a Cub Scout, and I also eventually moved on to become a Sea Scout. And I don't hear that mentioned much anymore. It's a pretty unique program, I think, at Aquatic Park in
Which
San
group were you
Francisco.
in?
Oh, as a Cub Scout?
As a Sea Scout. You remember the name of the group or the?
Well, I was on a 72-foot minesweeper.
That sounds like dolphin. And it,
Oh, exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
all right.
Good job.
Well, I knew Mike Strain and George Beglissoff, and Sea Scouting is still active. It's the smallest of our scout divisions. It's only got about 5,000 Sea Scouts in the entire country, but we have one docked in Petaluma called Compass Rose, and they've been going along for quite a long time. And the one you're talking about is a very old and established group in San Francisco. The two that are my favorites in San Francisco are called Corsair and Viking, where they sail whale boats back and forth across the bay all the time. So yes, that's also one of our co-ed programs. We've had girls in the Sea Scouts since 1971. Originally it was because they were Mariner Scouts and Girl Scouts that would double register with us. Now we have lots of girls that aren't Mariners, they're just regular Sea Scouts. But yes, we do have that. That's great.
Yeah, I never had gray hair until I had to start working with Sea Scouts. But they do an amazing program. So you touched on youth protection and just, there's always been a problem. They're concerned of the Boy Scouts with child abuse, those types of issues. And it wasn't rampant, but there's a concern. And one happening is too many. And around 1982, 1983, the Boy Scouts got very proactive in helping address the issues, how to prevent child abuse from occurring, and entered into a very involved, informative, helpful training that I think leads the country. And they get a lot of slack whenever there's one problem, a lot of hassle whenever there's one problem, but they do a great job and have taken that problem head on. And so hats off to what you guys are doing and what you're doing here. It's a great program.
Yeah, thank you. It's very fair to say that many organizations wanted to not know about it because it was so terrible to think about any adult that would harm a child. It's unfathomable. But Carrie's right. In the 1980s is when we basically decided to come to grips with it and become very proactive about it. And you'll notice most of the things that make the news right now are unfortunately from the time before that. Most of those cases you hear about are actually adults who are now older than me, wanting to get some kind of redress for something that did happen a long time ago. And I'm not saying it never happens now, but we're so strong in our youth protection policies and our youth protection training that you alluded to, that the cases that happen now are extremely rare. And most of the time it's we're catching a parent leader engaged in child pornography and they're out before anything's ever happened. The number of cases that we have now is extremely low. But in fairness, like most civic organizations, there was a time where people just didn't want to talk about this and deal with it. And for the last 30 years, we've been doing a much better job. And Terry's right, we actually get a lot of national recognition for being very good on this subject. So we turned a good leaf in the last 30 years. Go ahead.
My apologies if you addressed this while I was out of the room, but at the moment, how many female Eagle Scouts are there, and how do you anticipate that number growing?
We don't have any yet, but there probably will be in about 2 years. We've had a lot of females in scouting that have earned our Explorer Silver Award, our Sea Scout Quartermaster Award, and the Venturing Summit Award. And 40% of our volunteer service group is ladies. I mean, 40% of our den leaders, our board members, our commissioners, and our assistant scoutmasters are ladies. So there's a lot of female involvement. But the idea of the girls earning the Eagle is a new thing because they will have a chance to earn merit badges and ranks as part of a program, a parallel program of Boy Scouting starting next year, but it hasn't happened yet. So there aren't any yet, but there probably will be very soon, because girls have been wanting to do it for a long time. I have 2 daughters that grew up with me, and they couldn't wait till they were 14, because that was when we had the co-ed programs they could join. My older daughter did Girl Scouting all the way through to the end of her high school days, and also did venturing. And my younger daughter, frankly, wanted to switch to venturing and not be in Girl Scouts as soon as she could switch. So, you know, some girls want to be in Girl Scouts and campfire, some want to be in BSA, and some want to be in both, and it's all good. Am I out of time?
We are.
Okay, thank you very much for having me today.
I got one last task for you. We have a raffle,
Oh,
and
cool.
if you could draw the winning number.
okay. Keep sending this.
Remember now, Scout is trustworthy.
Well, my ticket's not in there, so I know I won't pull my own.
Get the money out of the way. Regarding child protection, I recall that when my son started going into scouting when I was in Pennsylvania in the late 80s, I got a more thorough investigation of my background than I did to get a top secret clearance when I was in the military. Part of that was because I had I went in the military right out of high school. I didn't have a lot to look at, but you know, and then when I was in scouting, I had moved around and been in a number of states. But it was an extremely thorough background check, and the training we got every year was good not only to protect the kids, but to protect the leaders. There's no possibility that kids could come back and say, you know, 20 years later, he was with me alone. It doesn't happen. You're never with a child alone. If you're counseling them separately, you're far enough away that nobody can hear the conversation, but you're out in public. Small things that I carry with me to this day on how to deal with other people, whether they're kids or other adults. Just common sense, good training. I really respect what scouting did for that. And yeah, anyway.
Thanks for that plug. You want me to read it?
Sure.
So I made a new friend. I hope the rest of you will still like me. 6688345 wins the day.
Wow, first call.
No?
Let's see how many just went vote.
When I pulled an absentee.
Well, we did have some early leavers, and sometimes we separate more tickets than actually come out. So
Must be present to win.
yes,
Going, gone. Okay.
Just
My next best friend.
yeah.
6688341.
Keep going. Last 4 digits is all.
Or 2.
Yeah, we had a lot left over on the table. So
How about 6688336?
Keep going.
get these items out of the way.
Wow.
Go ahead.
I am supposed to pull blue tickets, right?
Yeah.
How about 6688353?
Keep going.
This is a first for me.
We have to start separating fewer tickets here.
How about 6688340?
Come on, somebody keep going.
You want to now about 12 left. Let's see how we're doing. 6688348.
Keep going.
6688337.
How many people are checking?
Like I said, we have about 11 or 12 left.
Did anybody buy a ticket today?
Yeah, we got 4 over here.
Okay.
6688339.
Marty, you won. The pour, get poured.
Take it right here.
Yay!
Terry.
Oh, okay.
Terry won, yeah.
Okay, we are looking for the ace of spades.
Okay, there we go.
Last time I did this, it was a really nice bottle of rum.
Well, and Joe, and not only did Joe not bake a pies, he had to leave early, so he couldn't even take the heat, so he's gonna get a big five next week. Ooh, so close, so close.
I don't know yet. A new four.
Wait till Joe today, Michael Cook.
He left it.
Okay.
I claim no,
PJ.
Yeah.
Mike.
I bought some shoes from a drug dealer. I don't know what he laced them with, but I've been tripping all day.
Oh, groaner. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you till we meet again. We are adjourned. There it is. What a great idea. A simple solution.
I think we can trust
Putting on the option today. Think about it.
During that regime, they eliminated. Thank you for being involved in Rotary, and thank you for being this. Yeah, I'll bet it's warm. They don't know any different now, right?